Very simply, I was talking about the general introduction to the topic I'm going to clarify and highlight in a minute. So my name is Abdurrahim Shulfawat, and I am assistant professor at Hassan II University of Casablanca. And in my research, I work on media communication, especially in Morocco. But that's why I am now extending my field of research a bit to a more regional approach. To understand why we speak about Morocco and Algeria today, and why these two countries are, very visible in the media these days, whether they are local or regional or even international media. We need to get a snapshot of history. I'm not going to delve much in that, but we need to understand that the relationship between the two countries, there are two neighboring countries that share a lot of cultural, religious, linguistic backgrounds and geography as well, of course, close to each other, close to the Mediterranean Sea, close to Europe, in North Africa. And so normally, if we speak about norms, normally the relationship between the two countries should be thriving, not just for their own peoples, but also for North Africa in general, including, a better relationship with Tunisia, with Libya and Mauritania, if not for Africa as a whole. But the rift between the two countries has its own ramifications on relations in the region at large. To understand the situation that is going on today, we need to look back briefly at history. And I can say that the Moroccan-Algerian relations have gone through three big, broad phases. Pre-coloniality, before the colonial period, in which the relationship was marked by complete openness. Relations were there, even though Algeria was under the Ottoman Empire, but Morocco was not. But relations were very strong and fluid. Then the two countries underwent the French colonization, but the two peoples were cooperating a lot during that period. Then problems started, and even now today, we speak about the possibility of war. Starting from 1963, 1 year after Algeria's independence, Morocco got independence from the French in 1956 and Algeria in 1962. And right after 1962, the two countries, I can say, have inherited borders that encourage discord rather than facilitate cooperation or collaboration. The problem of borders, and then after borders came other problems with the economic, political and geostrategic competition. The two countries have engaged in a very stiff and fierce competition at the political, economic and geostrategic levels today. So from in the period of post-coloniality, that is to say 1963 up till today, this period can be divided into four. 1963 with the Sand War between the two countries. It was a very limited war, but it remains a war after all. 1963 to 1975, in which the Polisario movement, which is for Moroccans, it is a separatist movement. For the Algerians, it is an independence-seeking movement in Morocco, but they are Moroccans at the end of the day. So the Polisario formed in 1975 with a clear backing from Libya, especially Al-Qaddafi, and from Algeria, especially Boumediene. And then 1994, the borders were axed, were stopped, were closed after a terrorist attack in Marrakesh, in the Atlas Asni Hotel, and Morocco clearly accused the Algerians of being behind that terrorist attack. And so the borders have been closed ever since, up till today. And then 2019, with the pandemic, with the rising challenges with the maybe in the making, the rise of now, and the rise of Russia as well, and their relations with Algeria, with now America, and Israel, etc., and their relations with Morocco. Now, the relationship is truly twisted and complicated. So, and just that fourth period maybe deserves more attention because it has its own ramifications on the findings on the research I am conducting. That is still in the making, in fact. So in that fourth period of post 20, a lot of events and developments have taken place, including Algeria went through a void with with the different persons. One was sick and sought fifth Monday.
Abdrahim.
Iraq, as we and then another president.
The sound is not clear.
Yes, Abdrahim.
Yeah, you know,
Abdrahim.
Yeah.
Abdrahim, we cannot hear you well. Can you maybe switch off? Can you maybe switch off the video?
Coupled by.
Can you maybe switch off your video so maybe the sound gets clearer? We cannot hear you well. It's very much interrupted because of the internet connection, probably. Please switch off your video. Maybe it's better now. Let's try again. Now we lost him completely. Where is he gone?
I think we lost him, yeah.
I think we lost him.
Okay, maybe he comes back, but then we should try without the video. Maybe it works better without video. Okay, in case he is gone completely, is he returning now?
Maybe.
Otherwise, we may change the order and start with Abdullah Bakhash and then now he's coming back. He's trying to come back. Yeah.
Okay. So let's wait for him.
Sorry, I went out unexpectedly. Let me share my screen again.
Abdrahim, your sound was not really clear. So maybe you can switch off the camera while speaking. Okay, maybe this helps.
Okay, and what about now? Is the sound clear now? Because I've changed my connection.
Yeah, the sound is clear now, yes.
Yeah. But your screen is...
Yeah, I'm going to share it right now.
Okay, okay. Okay.
It is visible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I was talking about some history. I'm not sure you could hear me. I was explaining. Could you hear the things I said, or I don't? You did. Okay. So I said that in the fourth phase, post 2019, 2020, and now, a very good number of events have taken place that have led to the current escalation. The political void in Algeria, charge in Morocco with forest fires, the Gargarat crisis, which I'm going to delve more into in a bit, the trilateral agreement this between Morocco, the US, and Israel, because Morocco needed a new kind of weapons in order to protect its southern territories from blockading the Gargarat buffer zone, which is a passageway towards Africa. And for Morocco, it is blocking that passageway is clearly an economic embargo, especially with the borders with Algeria closed and the relations with Spain are not, in a good shape. And so Morocco could not tolerate the blockade of the Algeria or stopping the Algeria passageway towards Africa, especially that Morocco has now thriving increasingly thriving economic relations with Africa. And so it was taken for something like an economic embargo that Rabat was not ready to tolerate. Part of the problem is that Morocco maybe needed some more sophisticated weaponry and had maybe to buy some from the US, etc. And there came the trilateral agreement that again triggered more anger in Algiers. And then came the Pegasus leaks, in which Rabat was accused of spying on Algerian leaders. Again, this is another issue that's appeared a lot in the media. And then came, it's a series of escalations. Then came Hilal's remarks, and Omar Hilal is Morocco's envoy to the UN, who in a meeting was asked about giving the Sahrawi people, in the Western Sahara, giving them their right to self-determination. And then he reacted by asking the Algerian Minister of Foreign Affairs about giving the same right of self-determination to the Kabyle people in Algeria. Then another war of words took place. And this leads me to the following. Since all these tangles, these problems, escalations since 1963 up till today have been played out in the media. The media, whether in the past they were just written media, but with the arrival of TV channels then and the radio channels, these media continued on the same path. And today with online media, it's quite the same. Then my research questions are the following. What role do mainstream media play in the Moroccan-Algerian rift? I'm referring here to mainstream media. I'm not talking about what is going on in social media platforms such as Facebook or Twitter or Clubhouse these days. There is a lot of dispute among people, but I'm not interested in that. I'm more interested in media that reflect certain policies behind. And so that's why I'm talking about mainstream media that reflect the positions of the two governments, of the two regimes. What stereotypes overwhelm the media on both sides, as well as to what extent did the media abide by journalistic ethics? So I will go back to that possibly towards the end. So these are my three key research questions. And I depend on the theory of discourse ethics, which that was brought up by Jürgen Habermas, the German philosopher and sociologist. Discourse ethics, I view it through the lens of media and communication and peacemaking standpoint, through the lens of media and communication studies. But I am more interested as a person in peacemaking rather than escalation, because I personally believe that the two countries can collaborate and cooperate, and the opportunities that can they both can generate from collaboration outnumber the benefits they can get from escalation. And so I am more interested in peacemaking, and I view or I adopt that theory from the standpoint of peacemaking. Of course, discourse ethics and peacemaking need to take into account a number of facts that journalists face a dilemma between being fair and being neutral and being involved, because that concerns their own countries. There is, again, a problem of ownership that affects the editorial lines and the discourses that the media share. So depending on ownership, whether it is economic ownership or military ownership, as it is the case in Algeria, or it is regime ownership, as it is the case in Morocco, or people related to the regime. And so as a result, discourses that occur in the media abide by the opinions of their owners. And when their owners, favor escalation, then the media follow suit, unfortunately. Then there is another problem of commercialization. Even when the media don't want to abide or do not abide by the state opinion per se, however, there is a commercialization challenge and problem. And as Pauli 2009 says, conflict sells. So the media themselves, to sell their products and to attract attention, tend to focus more on conflict rather than on peacemaking. And as Pauli says, conflict sells. If it bleeds, it leads. And then the media favor focusing on uprisings, on revolutions, on problems, rather than on, peacemaking or shared concerns of the people. Then there's again a problem of bias because of national belonging, or when the country is about to get at war. Journalists may, whether they like it or not, get involved in the overwhelming discourse, and they very often become biased. Nevertheless, despite these problems, the idea of discourse ethics takes into account that the media can contribute to peacemaking, especially when we speak about a bottom-up approach rather than a top-down approach. The media can pave the way for peacemaking when they share, common affinities, when they speak about points in which countries meet, possibilities for common benefit, possibilities for peacemaking, possibilities for joint efforts, joint ventures, possibilities for joint projects, etc. When the media, through their different products, whether they are the news or cultural products or even entertainment, when they take into account the possibility that they can share these contents, they can provide the public psychologically and effectively to accept peacemaking efforts. So when we do it in this bottom-up approach, the media can succeed in contribution to peacemaking. And like when it is top-down, when we want to start, for example, peacemaking efforts and then leave the public till the end, and then the media would zoom in on just the negotiation table or the meetings, which does not necessarily help people see the rationale behind peacemaking or agree with it or accept it totally. The idea of discourse ethics depends on the work of Jürgen Habermas, which is a continuation of his work on the public sphere theory that occurs in his book, The Structural Transformations of the Public Sphere. That communication, discourse, debate can help people reach common points. And the same idea from the public sphere moves on to discourse ethics. Language is central to the formation of norms, and that's to take into account the previous points or problems that journalists meet. We can agree upon a narrow set of principles that can be universally acceptable. Especially truthfulness and justice. And then through communication, the different affected parties can reach agreeable norms through debate, through discussion on the media, through communication, through language, through pinpointing common projects, common ideas, common possibilities. Then we can reach agreeable norms for the sake of peacemaking. That leads me to the question of to what extent do the media help reaching agreeable norms in the Moroccan-Algerian rift? To answer that, the methodology I followed, or I'm still following, because this is a work that is still in the making. The methodology is as follows. I focus on the coverage of the Algeria crisis, which is not 100% a Moroccan-Algerian crisis. It is between Morocco and the Polisario, but of course, I needed to see how the issue is going to be treated even in Algerian media, because that would give me a clearer idea, maybe better than when it is a direct conflict, even though up till from that time up till now, a number of direct conflicts have taken place. I focus on mainstream media. No matter whether they are public or not public. And then I have chosen, but in Morocco, we don't have private TV channels. We have private radio channels, but not private TV channels. But even as some Algerian researchers say, even in Algeria, the idea of publicness is very debatable, whether the private channels are truly private, or they are private just financially. But when it comes to the standpoint, to the ideas they share, to their editorial lines, they would sound more like public channels or public media than anything else. In Morocco, I worked on the representations of Algeria in the products of Dozem and Al-Ula, which are TV channels, and Hespertos.com, which is a mainstream website. And the same thing was true for Nahar and the Shorop TV channels in Algeria, and then Al-Khabar.com in which is a website. And what is common between these outlets, whether in Morocco or in Algeria, is the criterion of popularity and relevance. So they are all very popular in their countries. Those are either the most highly watched channels or the most highly visited websites. So the criterion of popularity for me is very important. In addition, possibly the coverage in the channels and websites reflects stereotypes and representations, but I also needed to ask the journalists about their own understanding of the relationship between the two countries, as well as their readiness to abide by journalistic or professional ethics. So it is these two sides, both the content for the sake of the representations and stereotypes, and the actors or the journalists themselves about their readiness to abide by their professional ethics. So my key findings is that in Morocco, there is very little attention given to Algeria in TV channels. Possibly this is a choice that the Moroccan TV channels have, which is to manage the relationship through neglect. It seems to me, after following these two channels, that they mention the Polisario, the Algeria problem, etc., but not Algeria. Possibly the idea here is that this is a purely Moroccan issue, and Algeria doesn't have anything to do with it. So, but some of the ideas that again pop up from time to time is that Algeria is led by a coercive military regime that monopolizes everything, including the media. That's why Algerian media supports the Polisario, and Algeria takes the Sahrawi people for hostages and a proxy war. So, here I am talking about something like 500 products in the three outlets that I mentioned earlier, the two TV channels and the website. But these issues are more visible in the website rather than in the TV channels. TV channels, especially Al-Ula, which is more official than the ZEM. The visibility of Algeria is very scanty and very little. Algeria takes Sahrawis for hostages. Algeria instrumentalizes the Sahara affair to threaten Morocco's strategic interests. And Algeria supports not only separatism but also terrorism. And we have titles about that especially during the Algeria crisis, that some terrorists maybe wanted to join the Polisario through Algeria. I'm not sure whether this is true or just fake news. That Morocco has mistakenly often described Algeria as a brotherly country, but now it is Algeria proves that it is ready to support breaking Morocco into two through the Polisario, and that the solution, the solution to the Sahara affair lies in Algiers, not in Tindouf. So there is a common understanding, even though, especially here in the website, Express, rather than in the TV channels, there is a general understanding that, or through the representations and the themes and sub-themes being shared in opinion articles, in news articles, in analyses, etc. So the one of the ideas that is that the solution to the Sahara affair, even though it is at face value a Moroccan issue, but of course without Algeria the problem would have been solved earlier. I need to rush. A second point here concerning Moroccan media, they also speak about the idea that Algeria lacks a clear foreign policy except against Morocco. But the Maghreb view.
عبد الرحمن بقي المعذرة على القطع، لكن بقي لك 5 دقائق فقط حتى نلتقي.
Good. That's good. I'm going to I'm going to take that into account. Okay, 5 minutes.
معك الدكتور صادق الحمامي أترأس بعد نوع من التأخير. تفضل.
شكرا دكتور صادق. شكرا دكتور الحمامي. مرحبا. So I was talking about the some of the ideas that were very prevalent and even omnipresent in the Moroccan coverage of the Algeria crisis. Actually, the main stereotypes that that were being fixed through those representations is that the Algerian regime is irrational, and that the military regime is escapist, since it depends heavily on the animosity with Morocco in order to shift attention from the inside, from domestic problems, to a foreign threat. That the Algerian regime is itself a puppet in wider international struggle and dynamics through the relations between the US and Russia and China, etc., and France and the European Union in North Africa, and that very little media attention should be given to Algeria, since as if the Algerian regime is looking for that attention, but especially TV channels in Morocco prefer not to give them that. Concerning the Algerian media, the ideas that keep repeating is that Morocco occupies the Sahara, that countries, the countries that started opening their consulates in the cities of Laayoune and Boujdour and possibly in Dakhla. So the idea about that is that those countries have no right to open consulates in the Western Sahara, since it is an occupied territory. But also Morocco sold from Algeria some car manufacturing projects. There is a lot of debate over those foreign investments in terms of manufacturing, car manufacturing projects. That Morocco lies behind forest fires in Algeria, and especially by providing financial support to some terrorists who caused those forest fires, and some of those who caused them were presented or were presented in the media as fleeing towards Morocco, and they were captured red-handed. But again, I'm not sure whether this is true or just mere fake news. The Sahrawis are just refugees, but they deserve sympathy and solidarity from Algerian people. So they would encourage, through those media representations, Algerian people would be encouraged to, to organize, campaigns of solidarity and sympathy. The Polisario's military action will rectify the situation in the Western Sahara. And as I said, the Algerian media encourage that military action, that Morocco and Polisario should go back to the negotiation table. This is good, but behind that, we understand that Morocco will have to, first of all, recognize the Polisario and sit on the negotiation table in the first place. And that idea is not, doesn't resonate with what the Rabat wants or Rabat wants. I'm sorry. Morocco is an occupied force. Sahrawis are refugees. Okay, I'm rushing, and that Algeria does not intervene in the Sahara affair, which is fake news again. Then the findings in the questionnaire very quickly in 1 or 2 minutes, and I'm very sorry for this lengthy presentation. So I asked journalists from both sides, but unfortunately, I would say, 67 Moroccans answered, but 0 Algerian journalists interacted with my request of responding to the questionnaire. 0, I'm saying. In Morocco, I've managed to gather opinions from 67. But I don't know why, even though it is a purely scientific work and the questions are broad, as you can see. In Morocco, 89.6 journalists say, that they have not received any training in covering Algerian issues. 70.1% say, so those 67, as you can see, say that their outlet does not have any specialist journalists in Algerian issues. They do not cover Algeria at all. 50% say they do not cover Algeria at all. Possibly this resonates with the idea of managing the relationship through neglect. They don't even visit the Algerian media. For them, and nevertheless, don't think that Algeria is a peacemaking country in North Africa. And then, however, more than half think that we should, in our media, we should treat Algeria as a brotherly country with common history, rather than, for example, an enemy country or a country that can be a strategic ally in the future, or a country that obstacles development in Morocco. They will have these issues, but as you can see, more than the majority have a positive idea about, or a positive mental representation about Algeria. I end with this. I asked them, in your opinion, which country benefits the most from continuing the rift between Morocco and Algeria? And as you can see, 31.3% say it is France, and then 17.9% say it is the European Union. And then if we combine these and add to them
لو تعطينا ملخص حول الاستاذ، لانه انتهى الوقت، هل تعطينا
to conclude with example conclusion. The conclusion is that on both sides, I would say, discourse ethics are not respected, and that there is a lot of incitement to violence, a lot of fake news, a lot of disinformation, to the extent that I can say that the media create a warlike atmosphere. And possibly this is because media on both sides lack enough freedom. So there is a problem of ownership, and as a result, the media abide by the rules of the two regimes who do not seem to be okay these days. Thank you. I'm very